Tuesday, September the 12th, 2013, 7 p.m. Our invocation tonight will be by Pastor Dory Pettis with Now Ministries.
Let's bow our heads and let's pray and bless tonight's meeting. Lord, we come humbly before you and we say thank you for this day in which you have made. Thank you for this meeting. Bless all and everything that will be discussed on the agenda for this night. Allow your will and your wisdom to speak. Thank you for the leadership in our community. And Lord, we ask that you put it in their hearts, Father, to be here where they are tonight simply for this reason, because they took this position to make a difference in the lives of those citizens in Floresville and for the community, Father. We thank you for each and every one, Father, every council member and our mayor and even the leaders of our community. We thank you for concerned citizens to come out and support not only our mayor and council, but also our community. And we ask for the peace of God to be upon everyone's heart on tonight. We declare a successful meeting where all will leave pleased with what the outcomes are. We ask you to bless those who took time out of their busy schedule to come out tonight. We call everyone blessed and highly favored. And again, we thank you for this meeting. And we want to give you all the glory and honor in Jesus' name. And everyone said amen.
We have established a quorum: Councilman Miller, Councilman Morones, Councilwoman Castillo, Councilman Guerrero, and Councilman Rodriguez. At this time, will everyone please stand to the pledge of allegiance and open fire.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Okay, at this time we're going to start with number 1, updated presentation. A, feasibility of retaining a staff attorney. Councilman Rodriguez, is that?
Yeah, I was just, I brought this one on just to check the skills status to see how things was going, and just to make sure that everyone was still abreast on something that we're interested in looking into.
The staff's had a little bit of time to work on this. What we sent you via email and the copies in your packets up there is a kind of a reference manual on attorneys and cities through TML. It's a reference document that they sent out to us to give to you guys. It was emailed. Should say more than
Yes.
Anyway, it kind of describes the different options that we have for attorneys, not just in-house staff and not just big, large firms, but all of the different types. We did do some checking. Cities that are generally our size have attorneys that are contracted out. I couldn't find any city that is relatively our size that has an in-house staff attorney. It depends on the community and what's going on in it, but even Karnes City and Kennedy with all of the growth, Pleasanton. Now, Pleasanton has an engineer that they hire and has in-house, but they do not use their staff attorney in-house. So it's a little bit different, and we'll do some more research on it. I'm working on some additional TML stuff, but I wanted you guys to have that to see the different options that are out there that we could look at other than just in-house.
Correct, and one thing that I was wanting to, maybe entertain the idea of also using the staff attorney for different functions, FEDC, reporting, so forth like that, which a lot of the cities don't have. So, because of the charter.
Right, and they usually, the 4A and the FEDC usually have a separate attorney so that there's no conflict of interest on issues between the city and like the FEDC or the 4A. We will do some more searching on that for you, see if I can find some more options. If directed by the council, we can bring it back. And if directed by the council, we can do bids to go out and see what other attorneys would charge, that kind of thing. But right now, this gives you some information on, again, the different types other than strictly in-house or one individual contractor.
And I'm going to add, especially when this was discussed by council, one of the things that we were looking at was what are the economics of this? Can we, if we're spending $250,000 a year in legal fees for the city, and we hire a staff attorney for $120,000 a year, are we saving money? Well, I know the answer is probably not, because of the things, the limitations of a staff attorney. But we need to not worry about what Pleasanton's doing and what Kennedy's doing or any of the other cities are doing, and focus on the dollar impact that it has on this city. And we must make our decisions based upon those dollars, not other cities. And this was the discussion we had with the police department as well. So when we bring this back to the council, one of the things that I want to be able to see are the economic side of the house of this. If we can hire a staff attorney, what would the salary range be? What percentage of the fees that we're currently paying would a staff attorney be able to take care of in-house? And what percentage would we still have to go outside for a specialty attorney? And that's going to drive the decision.
And that's going to be a big portion of it. Even you hire an in-house staff attorney, and they may not be able to handle everything, so you still have to bring a contract in.
Again, I'd like to look at the numbers for that.
And honestly, in doing doing the research, we have a very, very high cost in attorney fees, even compared to cities that have extreme growth. So we really need to look at, again, looking at cutting costs on maybe doing a staff attorney or a different firm, or however the council proceeds to go. We've really got to start holding back on the cost that we incur on our attorneys as well. So we'll put some of that together, the different items, and we will bring that back. Budget has been priority here, and so there hasn't been as much done on it as we would have liked. Now that budget's over, it will be a priority to bring it back to the council.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item 1B, the Floresville Lakes subdivision presentation by Mr. Dan Davis, attorney in Edinburgh, Virginia.
Mayor, council, my name is Dan Davis. I'm an attorney in Corpus Christi. I have represented the people that I'm going to talk about tonight since, I guess, 2005, and my firm has represented them quite a bit longer than that, probably since the early 1990s. But so we know them well. I also brought with me Bo Wall, who's a professional engineer, who will talk about two of the things related to utilities. The only two things we really wanted to do tonight was to make sure that all this worked. So far, so good, though. I wonder if I'm not, is there anything wrong with that? That'll work. The entity that owns the 252 acres is Floresville Lakes Ltd. They're primarily owned by two individuals, Blackstone Dilworth and Paul Dirks. Dilworth Group, I have been involved with them in developing about a little over 2,000 acres in Laredo. That's involved a couple thousand homes, a lot of commercial property, H-E-B, Walmart, Academy, I don't worry with the list, but they're people who know what they're doing. They don't cut corners. They like to do a good job. Originally, they acquired the property in 2005, and let me, it worked. You give you a sense, a hope of where the property is off 181. The road that leads into it is Katy Lane, which is actually just a sandy road at this point. Anyways, they have acquired the property in 2005 because of the economy in 2008. They put it on hold. They they would like to, they are moving forward on developing at least the initial phase of the property. I hope you can see that better than I can. It looks like a big green Google Earth topographical map. They had worked on some initial things in the middle of the development to put in some lakes. You can see that this was a conceptual drawing that was done back in the 2008 period. Though each of those groupings are portions of acreage that would be phases of the property. Shows one lake there. There's actually a series of lakes that they go across there right now. There's a lot of water in them, but at the moment. The first phase would, at this point, probably be about 52 lots, though they have a consulting firm that is working with them to determine what the market need is here. I don't know what it was in 2005 to 2008 when they initially developed the plan. I don't know how much that would have changed. I did notice on your master plan that it looked like a lot of the growth that was happening in Floresville was moving in that direction. But they'll rely on that to determine what the final scope of the project will be. These are just some of the initial, I think, flat sheets that were proposed back in 2008. They were to the point, before everything else fell apart for everybody else, in 2008 of getting this platted, or at least the initial phase. What they'd like to do at this point is there's some utility issues. We are outside the city limits, just barely, and Sunco handles the water right now. But there will be issues related to the sewer system. There's been discussions regarding the car heat lift station and rebuilding that, replacing it at our cost in order to begin the project. I'm going to introduce Bo Wall for a minute, and he's going to just kind of talk about a few of the people that he's discussed things with up to this point. I'd be happy before he starts to answer any questions that you might have. Basically, we just wanted to introduce ourselves to you, tell you what we were doing, and request that the council act on an authorization to begin discussions, negotiations on a development agreement perhaps. That's really the only two things we need to do tonight. But if there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bo Wall to you.
I'm just going to give you a quick background. I'm Bo Wall with Slave Engineering. I am the engineering contact for the city. I have met with quite a few of your staff, such as Mr. there and the answers as far as what the capacity of the existing collection system is to the city gas and what improvements might be required in order to serve the property. We have started analyzing the requirements. We've done a preliminary study on the lift station. We did back in 2008. In fact, we had done a design on the lift station trying to address the improvements that are going to be required to serve that development. Recently, we've been working with Brian Holter at TxDOT as far as getting a development the permit for improvements to Katy Lane and trying to widen Katy Lane from the existing one-lane road to 2 lanes there and 2 lanes out. There will be quite an extensive extension of the left turn lane and southbound of 181. We've also been in touch touch with Joe Wyattrek with Central Water Supply Corporation as far as providing the water needs to the tract, and we have an understanding of what the requirements are. They are able to provide not only phase one, but ultimate development water needs to the tract. And then I've been meeting with Floresville Electric Lighting and Power, getting power run out to the site in order to provide power to not only the existing well that's there, but also for the future development of the subdivision, and then meeting with them. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're looking at trying to maybe do some work shortly on the utilities, at least on the water line, and making some adjustments to some of those lines so that it's out of the way to improve the K line. Do you all have any questions?
I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I think my question is probably more addressed to Mr. Davis. What are the thoughts of voluntary annexation on this?
I'd be happy to support it. I mean, I thought of it today. I saw that the boys who, I don't know whether that passed or not.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Of course, it's the city limits moved out to County Road 130, but I mean.
That only took in, what, 15 acres or so?
I don't have the exact figure on
Or
it.
something like it. That's what was in the minutes, something like 15.
You know, if this is contiguous with the city, and it appears that it would be,
Files along party.
you know, voluntary annexation would solve a lot of the challenges that you may have, and may, I don't know that that's feasible or not from your investor perspective and the development perspective, but that's certainly something that we're going to be considering here, you know, with issues of utilities and providing services.
Okay, well, that would be great if in addressing any council action that be added to it as in terms of feasibility of it.
Certainly, as you work with city staff on this, to pursue I forget the exact verbiage that you have on here, or pursue this development, certainly voluntary annexation is going to be something that we're going to do.
Okay, sure, we'd be happy to talk about that.
You have made mention about a lift station.
Already to lift station, the existing one, and we need to, for the sanitary sewer system, to improve that in order to handle additional capacity. I mean, if you look at the total original plan, there were almost 500 home sites. Now, whether or not it develops that way now in 2013, looking ahead, you know, for the next 3, 4, 5 years, then I guess we're going to let our consulting group tell us what's best. But there were on one of the, well, I get this back now, one of the drawings showed that there was a variety of size of lots.
Yeah, so from patio homes to.
Right, well, you have those extra
Yeah.
patio homes.
Very large lots towards.
Just very large lots, small acreage.
But all these lots compliant with basically with the city code, correct?
I guess it would depend on, because of the annexation, I know that there's an agreement with the county, with Wilson County, regarding the permitting process, right, for the development. I'm aware of that. And then, of course, this issue of annexation would further develop it, but yes.
Well, and Claire, Mr. Davis, and maybe not for your benefit, but for the audience's benefit, you know, the ETJ is that part of the county that is right adjacent to the city limits that the city may very well annex in the future, voluntarily or otherwise. And the purpose for the ETJ, amongst all of the watershed issues, are to ensure that our construction standards are met in the ETJ, so that when that area is annexed, we're not having to annex something that does not meet city codes. And there's some agreements in place that have to be worked on that. And hence my comment about voluntary annexation. It would just prevent a lot of potential problems down the road, and certainly is going to ease the utility piece of this. I don't know where it sits in the CCN and some of those other parts and pieces to it, but that's certainly going to be a consideration.
Okay, I'm gonna say don't ask any more questions, because we do have another item that I think is more where we should be asking these questions.
Okay.
Okay, and that's gonna be item 2A, which is consideration and action to direct the city manager to review and assess the availability of public utilities and facilities for the proposed lake subdivision, and to authorize the city manager and other staff to negotiate with the Lakes Development Ltd. representatives to draft a development agreement for presentation to the city council for review. And under that, I myself have 3 questions. Okay. One of is, has this project even been presented to P&Z at this point?
No, right now, it's not subject to P&Z,
Okay.
because it's not within the city limits. so-
Therefore, there has been no
I don't know.
annexation requested or anything, right?
Not currently. I don't know what happened. None of, neither Bo nor I were involved with it at 2008 and before that, so I don't know what discussions may have occurred at that time. But as far as I know, none.
And my third question would be, why would you want to need to direct the city manager if it hasn't gone through P&Z for review and everything worked out? Usually it all gets worked out in P&Z and then comes back to us, to the council for vote. Chris, if you can clarify that?
Yeah, and I can actually take that question, and what we wanted to do is make sure that the city was kept in the loop as all this goes on. Similar to with the voice development, even though it was outside of the city at the time, to get everything in line, to get everything in order to actually make it, because there was a potential for annexation right there. It was a big revenue stream for the city, to make sure that the city was in the loop, and to make sure that if sewer lines and things like that had to be extended out that are under the jurisdiction of the city, that the city's kept apprised, and we can bring an agreement to the city that contains all that for your review and potential approval.
And the boys did go through the P&Z though, for all that.
Before, and let me add to that, or maybe clarify a little bit what Chris is trying to say, is by the time McCoy's got to the council, an agreement was already in place with FEDC and had already gone through P&Z, and the council was blind to what had been negotiated. What I think this process is going to enable the council to be able to do is have more visibility of the project long before it gets to P&Z, so that they know what the planning parts have gone into this. We ended up so blind on some of the other projects because the process didn't require them to come to city council. This is coming to city council very early in the program.
Sure. And this will make city council aware of whatever potential needs that the development has, that their staff and their engineers and everybody say the requirements are. City council can be made aware of that throughout the entirety of the process.
Also, if I could, Mayor, clarify just the action item that I think we're looking for here is one that allows if you get to a point of presenting something to you that could be signed, is really all that's about. It's not saying they're going to make the decision and then they're going to bring it to you.
And in my opinion, this should have been in place already 6 months ago because the demand is definitely there.
I'll pass that off.
Would it be of interest to perhaps, or any of the engineering, on the engineering side, are there already studies in place for sewer and water, any sewer and water models?
Okay, there's a previous study that was done by one of your previous city engineers that we're going to be tagging on to as far as analyzing the collection system. That's going to be one of the requirements that we have to present to you, I know, to make sure that we are not overloading our system, that it has the capacity for us to be able to be served by the sanitary sewer system and the wastewater plant. That's the purpose or reason where we've already identified how retail lift stations have to be replaced because it's inadequate.
Correct.
And as far as the water goes, we're in the Sunco CCM, and unless that can be changed, right now, I understand we're going to have to be purchasing water from Sunco. I think that has been considered in the past. I was not involved with it at that time, but I think it's a legislative action that would have to be required in order to pull it out of the Sunco CCM and have you serve us water. And I'm not sure that it may be a very long process. I'm not sure it's something.
Being that voluntary annexation is basically considered. Is the city entitled to supply water, or can Sunco still provide water if they are voluntarily?
And that gets into a lot of legal issues. The CCN that Sunco has guarantees them the right from the state of Texas to provide water in that service area. If there is an annexation, then the city can take over that. We get into some other issues there with federal law, where if they have federal United States Department of Agriculture loans, they're federally protected, and that supersedes state law over the CCN area. And there's just a bunch of things that go into that question. So basic answer is yes, it's possible. Realistic answer is there's a lot more that we would have to know before we can move down that path.
So would it be more correct for us to wait to see if a voluntary annexation is even possible before we start moving forward to direct city staff to?
That's a council decision, but from our legal perspective, the city can still provide service. Obviously, Sunco, the water supply corporation, does not provide sewer out that way.
Correct.
And can enter into an agreement to at least provide the sewer for now pending an annexation, and then work with Sunco regarding the billing, have a mutual, because sewer is usually billed off of water usage, and so there have to be an agreement with Sunco that they provide the water usages, and then the city can bill for sewer based off of that.
But we're not agreeing to that tonight. What we're simply doing is looking at the possibilities of
Discussing all of these
Correct.
potential.
Mayor, I have a question for Chris. Yes. In considering approval for the CMA, will we be establishing any unfair practices on other things that we voted without having to go through PNC first?
No, because this is, like I say, it's currently not necessarily subject to P&Z for these issues because it is out in the ETJ. And so this is simply to authorize the city manager to work with this and potentially, if it gets to that point, craft an agreement that takes all these into account to bring back. So it would not interfere with any of the other items. That may be in facially similar circumstances.
And so you would compare this to
McCoy's most of all.
the McCoys?
Worst case scenario, if the sewer models come in thinking that y'all are only going to be given sewer to the estates here, worst case scenario, is there a backup plan or another option if our sewer system cannot support the?
I've pulled up the master plan for you that was prepared by M&S, I believe it was in 2012, as well as the previous engineer, and your sewer system looks like it's going to be sufficient for wastewater plants. I understand it has capacity. There may be one area of the sewer system, the high-point lift station force main discharge that may need to be improved, but I think the collection system, any areas that were lacking capacity have been corrected, and I believe that the sewer collection system is in good shape, other than the need to replace the lift station, which is undersized.
Okay. Thank you.
With that, could I get a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to direct the city manager to review and assess the availability of public utilities and facilities for the proposed lake subdivision, and to authorize the city manager and other staff to negotiate with the Lakes Development Ltd. representatives to draft the development agreement for presentation to the city for review.
I have a motion by Councilman Guerrero, and I have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go on to item 2B, consideration and action to approve insurance plan for city employees. That would be Flora.
How y'all doing? You know, we've presented these options to you in 2 different budget workshops. And, you know, I don't think there's been any real significant questions that we've had from anyone. So, is there any questions about the plans that have been presented in terms of the medical part?
The only question I have, I think you know the direction that we've been going on this one, and the plan that it looks like the city's going to go with because of the dollar figures that we were working with. How is your organization going to work with city employees to explain the differences and the changes in the health plan?
Well, what we'll do, like we've done in the past, is we'll have group meetings where we bring out packets and materials and costs. What our plan was is to distribute a 1-page summary of these changes early next week. If you approve this tonight, start the enrollments in a group meeting, allow them the opportunity to review this, talk to us about those kind of things, and then either complete an enrollment that afternoon or come back another day and do one final enrollment. And what we do is we have all these documents prepared to where they usually come in departments, and it's really easy for them to see what they've had in the past, and they can compare that cost to what they're collecting.
And I don't know if this question's for you or for Laura. Did we end up going with, I know we went from the 100% plan post-deductible to the 80% plan following the deductible, with the option of the employee covering the cost to stay at the 100% or go to back to the 100%. Is that included in this?
That's what the people ask,
Those are the numbers we've been working on,
Right.
right?
One of the things that my recommendation would be that if you're going to change to an 80% plan, that you offer the dual option, because then what you're doing is you're giving the employees the opportunity to make that decision. If the city funds 100% of the employee only of the 80% plan, then the employee can buy up to the 100% if that's what they choose. So if you can do that, it's no additional cost in doing it. And that's what I would recommend.
And we're not making any changes to the life plan.
No, that's going to remain the same. The rates are held.
I don't know what the verbiage needs to be. Is it going to be as presented, or the option 4B, I think is what it was when we looked at it? It's just a renewal.
We're not changing the company. It's simply we're going to be changing the plan, and the plan has
Okay.
And really, for the minutes, it would probably be good if you indicated the 20 plan
With the dual option.
with the dual option.
I'll make the motion to approve the changes to our existing health insurance plan to the 80-20 that has been presented to council with the dual option for employees.
Were the employees told about the changes and all that, or they just?
No, generally, most private industry and decision makers in an entity like this doesn't normally go and ask all the employees their opinion of this.
Well, not you solely, because I had told Jocelyn a while back that, you know, if it was a raise or it was maybe changes, and I don't think that was ever done to the employees, but, I mean, yeah, we can do that.
I know, Mario, that in the one workshop where we discussed this, we had supervisors from the streets department, supervisors from the water and sewer involved in the discussions and shared many of the concerns of their employees, and as a result of the discussions in the workshop said they were going back to their employees with that information. And then when they came back to subsequent workshops, they provided positive results. Was that an official city communication? No. But that was kind of the information we used in the workshop to come up with these numbers.
And I will just say this, you have a very strong benefits program. You have a great group of benefits packaged together, and especially with the health reimbursement arrangement that you have to help assist on that deductible cost. There's not a lot of folks out there
meeting in the morning until what was adopted. So that's the extent of what I've done out there. But that one supervisor asked me to go out there. And I went out there the next day, next day, and told him what was being proposed. And there was no comments at all.
There was a motion.
I second the motion.
You have a motion by Councilman Miller. May I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, now we're going to go on to item 2C, consideration and action to approve the operating budget for the 2013-2014 fiscal year for the Floresville Economic Development Corporation. Jason, did you want to do that?
Jason?
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Okay.
what am I doing now? Let's see. Oh, okay, okay. All right. Well, we have provided, I hope that you received the budget in your packet. We also presented this to you and provided previously in another workshop. And so I hope you've had ample time to review those numbers. We feel like it's a very realistic budget. If you notice, there on the last page, we're even allocating for the street completion at the industrial park. That kind of indicates where our reserves are currently. And even after subtracting that out, if we chose to pay cash for that project, we still anticipate a reserve. Because our intent is not to spend everything that we bring in. And that even includes salaries and so forth for the new executive director as well as the benefits. As I've reported to in the past, that it's been very easy now because of the way our books are set up. Everything's itemized by project and cost and expense categorized in that fashion. It makes it so much easier now to literally have a good projection of what you think the cost is going to be.
And Jason, this isn't directed at you, but this is directed at Laura. Since that we have the agreement where you're going to be tracking their books in the same software that you track the city's books, will we be, in the way we're seeing our monthly reports now, will we be seeing the FEDC numbers?
Yep. Yeah, it'll be exactly. And then the budget document, they'll be actually incorporated in the budget document as well as they're required.
So it will be in the same format as our budget, et cetera. When do you expect that?
Next week, unless, I've actually started already creating some of the account numbers, we make a lot to create the account numbers. We're gonna start actually taking books as of October 1st because of the end of the year, we didn't want to complicate things. So we'll be incorporating the end of the year, so when you start getting your next year's budget reports, you'll see.
So well, the first numbers we'll see probably won't be until December-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason, I know that you and your board have been overwhelmed with challenges and have spent countless hours doing this, and I have spoke with you on a number of other FEDC projects. I'm very comfortable and I'm glad that the EDC is getting to the point that it is to be able to complete some of the promises that were made for the number of projects out there and still be able to complete the year with projected reserves. Pending no other questions from council, I'm going to move.
Laura, the fee that we're charging for you to do the books for them, does that include the time that the city secretary and the assistant put into doing the minutes and stuff? Or is that just
That was just for the accounting.
I'll make a motion to approve the operating budget, the 2013-2014 fiscal year operating budget for the Floresville Economic Development Corporation as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miller. May I get a second, please?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a second by Councilman Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0. Great job. Okay, now we're going to go on to item 2D, consideration and action to approve the operating budget for the 2013-2014 fiscal year for the Floresville 4A Corporation. Laura will be doing that.
Unfortunately, there was no one available to come to present, although I've actually helped them prepare their budget, so. Their budget actually has been included in the original budget documents that you received. It's a 570 fund, currently in your book. We just met through the budget workshop, it's page, starting on page 141. The 4A corporation budget just consists of sales tax of $337,000, and then concession sales, which is the beer, water, some, they do sell some chips and peanuts, such as that. That's all that's located on revenue side in their budget. The Civic Center operations is in your general fund. The expenses include the sales tax that we have to pay to the comptroller, again, paying for the beverages and the snacks that we buy. Legal fees, they pay for their own attorney. That's what currently is $2,000 a month, so $24,000. And then they have their bond payment for their land and the bond payment for the for their portion of the building, which is actually on the city's books. So they actually pay that, it actually gets transferred to the city side as we make that payment. Something that was handed out at them, before them during one of their meetings was showing how much sales tax revenue has been collected and going towards debt. And the reason for the restructure, the future restructure. Just want to kind of let you know that at the end of this year, they actually will have a small surplus that will go towards future debt payments. It'll be set aside of about $190,000. And then next year, which is 13-14, they're going to have an additional about $130,000. It's the sales tax portion to pay for debt for the Civic Center or other, you could do eventually at some point, sales tax could be used for other projects out there. And then 2014-15, they're going to have another additional $195,000, which is going to leave about $520,000 extra, and I don't say extra, sitting there for future debt payments. The 2010 bonds cannot be refunded or anything started until September of 2015. We talked with financial advisors several times. It's been questioned at their meetings that we've met before, I think the council said, so that the refunding of that large balloon payment, we won't even go there until September of 2015. There's nothing we can pre-do at all. But even at that point, they will have in reserve towards debt payments about $520,000. And at that point, hopefully sales tax will be even larger. So at this point, discussion of refinancing and rates are actually I just got some information from our financial advisors, and also the company that was talking about doing the police car, that rates are starting to increase. Again, that's almost 3 years away. So. And that's all that's in their budget. It's very simple for their specific budget that they're required to adopt. And they did adopt this budget, just like FEDC has to bring it to you and you have to approve it.
At what year do you project that it will start?
Do what?
At what year do you project that it will actually start operating on its own?
The Civic Center is always going to be in your general fund. It is the general fund. Currently, this year, they're actually going to have excess sales tax revenue because we don't have debt service payments. It's a match. It has to go towards debt service payment in the future, which could be, again, towards the debt that we have currently. along, the civic center is owned by the city and is in your general fund. Any other questions?
Laura, what calls up the miscellaneous?
Just very odd dollars, and that's why we interjected. I think that was actually a refund, and there was something else, I'd have to go back and look.
And their expenses, like for their papers and all that kind of stuff, that comes out of the
General fund. The operations of the civic center are, and that's Department 520 in the general fund budget.
Is there any way that we can get that miscellaneous itemized,
Let me go back.
just for transparency?
It just didn't follow in our categories.
I make a motion to approve the budget for the 2013-14 fiscal year for the Floresville Corporation.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Morones. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. All opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0. And I'm sorry, at the beginning of the minutes, I did not ask for any citizens' comments. If anyone has any comments, I do apologize. Okay, now we're going to go on to item 2E. Consideration and action regarding ordinance approving and adopting a budget for the city of Floresville, Texas for fiscal year 2013-2014, beginning October 1, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014. Laura?
Tonight, all goes well, you'll actually be approving and adopting your budget that we've been working on. Actually, we started our first budget workshop on June 13th, so we've been working on this for a while. You've had meetings June 13th, 27th, July 11th, August 1st was the city manager's proposed budget and submitted. And we had meetings on August 8th, 15th, 22nd, 28th, 5th, and more tonight. We had our public hearings, we had those as well on August 28th and September 5th. So from that, from the proposed, and again, we worked, it's a pretty slim budget. We all kind of know we're on the general fund monetarily. Some of the things that are included in this budget are the 30% reduction of the general fund deficit. We have also the health insurance change. That's a pretty large change, pretty large amount. The collective bargaining required additional money. Through the budget process, there is included in both the general fund and the water sewer fund merit raises from 1 to 3%. The majority of employees will be getting a 1%. Was discussed also, these are going to be based on the 12-13 evaluations that have been done over the last year. Some of the other things that were discussed, we're increasing the municipal court clerk to full-time. Right now it's a part-time position, so that's actually was included in what we've been, the city manager proposed and the council proposed tonight, and the changes we talked about in a few minutes. That does have the municipal court clerk going to full-time, so was an audit comment too, so that's something that's extremely important. The police department, we had, through the many meetings, we're looking at financing one Ford Interceptor. That's included in this proposed budget. The street department, at this point, we had a vacant position, and council has discussed in several of the meetings that we were going to basically put a freeze. We also eliminated the dollars, and we will reevaluate the situation as we go through the next few months. And as revenues come in, we did have sales tax right now as unflat. We did not put an increase for sales tax. We do feel like there will be some. One of the things is being able to increase the reserve fund balance, which will be about another almost $30,000 before we can actually go to try to fill these positions. The Parks Department had 3 vacant positions, those as well. Labor positions, those as well are on hold. Same thing, the money was removed to help offset some of the other items, such as the deficit. There was originally a Parks Department facility event supervisor, and that position was completely eliminated, so. At one point in the city manager's proposed budget, we did put in there for a part-time events coordinator, which is it's just someone to help out in the evenings and on the weekends. All right, at the moment, we removed that, but that's still something to be discussed, future $1 for there. Currently, there's the 1 employee and her laborer, so. Utility funds, excuse me, actually, let me go back, on the general fund, currently,